best amateurs in the business. I don't care.
Oh, well,
Welcome everybody. Welcome everybody to Greg Talks to People because therapy is expensive. On today's show, we have
that that's the best intro of the business.
yeah. I'm telling you that they get better every week.
A tagline from the tagline of taglines. I'm here for it. Let's fucking go. We're not even a minute. We're not even a minute in, but I'm swearing. It's okay. It's what I do.
Well, I mean, we don't have the 6-minute intro, but anyway, on today's show, we have longtime wrestling content creator, co-host of the Greg Cherry Show, the host of the Jeff Meacham Network, and all that stuff, and of course, one of my best friends, Jeff Meacham. Jeff, what's up, brother?
It is. As we record this, it's a Thursday. I'm looking at 8 out of the next 9 at the happiest place on earth, and I am not mad about it. I'll tell you what, man. Life is good, brother, and it's fortuitous for you that you're catching me for this in a good part, because a couple months ago, it probably would have necessitated therapy after we were done. So now's a good
time. Now it's crazy to think that as far as wrestling content creation goes, you've been doing this for almost a quarter of a century. So I feel like I personally have more of a knowledge of all the stuff that you've done, having been around, like
most of that, yeah.
Most of it, yeah. So I feel like we should at least bring up the early days.
Sure.
What are some of your favorite memories of the old Extreme Mayhem audio show and XMV?
God, it's crazy to think about. I passed 23 years doing this in October, and I look at the number 6 on the end of this year and going, man, next year's 25. Holy, like when we hit October this year, it starts my 25th year, which is like, what? It's my son's turning 18, my career's turning 25. I'm slowly, my spine's curving ever more. And now I actually have the gray in the beard on camera. Like you actually see the salt and pepper now. So there you go. I'm embracing it. What the hell? As far as if I look back at the first 2 years, which was strictly audio, that's where we really just had everybody and their mother, man. I will forever point to the interviews with Bobby Heenan that we did. That was so Bobby, even when the throat cancer had, lessened his voice, to the point that, he even said he felt like he was talking Mr. Red's tongue at one point. The wit never faded out of Bobby Heenan, even at the end, from what I heard. And we when we introed him the first time on the show, he immediately, as only Bobby can, quickly, geez, I thought you were going to interview Tony Schiavone for the first second with all the accolades you were given. This is when he and Tony were not getting along. And we went on for a few more seconds, and he says, "What was the name you were going to give me again?" And my co-host goes, "Schiavone," and Bobby flushed the toilet, all in the family style in the background. It's like, that's Bobby Heenan. So good. Dusty, of course, Dusty Rhodes, which started I still call it an acquaintanceship. I wouldn't call it a friendship necessarily, but definitely an acquaintanceship with the entire family. And Dusty being on forever read my co-host career, as far as the ability to say that Jeff Meacham abandoned the American dream for to play with little kids, if you will. I was at a tutoring gig at that point, so I had to go work. I'm sorry that I disappointed the dream, if you will. So Bobby and Dusty for sure. I realize now, looking back, that was the only time we actually got to interview, like sit down and chat with China. We had our XMV later. I'm sure we'll get into that later. But I look back at all the people that we interviewed that have since passed away, especially ones that passed not too long after. You think of people like Crash Holly. We had a great interview with Crash Holly, and then like he was gone a week later. It's like, what? It was whole bizarre. The Wall, brother. Jerry Toot. He was a great guest. Our first ever guest, Dan Severn, who I can't get to right now all the packing the way, but my 10 pounds of gold has a prominent place once I get the studio set back up. There's so many. I think one of the best ones though was when we interviewed the rock superstar Chaos and GQ Money, who was Ryan Katz, who's been a producer for WWE now for most of the last 20 years. Feels like. because he was in WSX, of course, and everything. But having that bond with Ryan since then, to the point where I went to New Year's Evil last year, I got to get this pretty full access as a result of that. So I think my favorite one was Chaos and GQ Money right after they had left XPW because of all the federal nonsense that was going on with that company. But that was really cool. But the fun ones, Bobby and Dusty and the Macho Man. The Macho Man Randy Savage, to this day, is the only wrestling talent that ever made my mom pop because back then, Greg, you screened the calls, you made sure the answering machine, let you know who was calling. And when he said it was the Macho Man Randy Savage, my mom fucking ran. Hang on one second. Jeff is ready. I know, Mom. I know. I'm supposed to. Okay. So Randy Savage will forever be a pop-inducing moment from my mom, which for wrestling, that's exactly one of one.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
now we covered the audio show.
Yeah.
I know personally. I know that the video show. There's probably a lot in this day and age that could not be talked about.
No,
but
I am
of the stuff you can talk about.
I am forever grateful to you that I made you one of the guardians of the library of that because when I got the videos back, I watched them back and they aged like milk. When the most tame episode that we could probably get away with putting up in modern times is the episode that featured my Rocky Horror Picture Show edition. That tells you about the aging of XMV. It just does.
You don't think the All Right episode would have been in that? I think that one would have been fine.
It might be. To be honest, I didn't get to go back and watch all of them yet. It's been a long time since I've watched them all. I wanted to get that episode out strictly because my niece wanted to watch me perform as the Eddie character on stage. And getting to point out the fact that much like the Ralph Wiggum episode, you can see his heartbreaking release of Simpson. You can see the point where my knee collides with the stairs as I'm running back up to the brutal. But I mean, yes, XMV was definitely a product of its time. There's no doubt about that. It's much like the Attitude Era. I've been watching the return of Bruce Pritchard to Something to Wrestle With since he returned to talk with Conrad. And, he talks about all the time. The Attitude Era was great during the Attitude Era. You watch that stuff back now, it's like, how did we get away with The reason we got away with our shit is because there was no YouTube, number one. No Google censorship over YouTube to go, and just everything is uploaded to the actual NoDQ server. So we were about as filtered as jet black coffee. Like it just was what it was back then. I enjoyed it for what it was in the time. You look back now, you go, okay, so that's one reason I need therapy. Got it. But Vegas, the first, it was our anniversary of doing the show overall, but we took the show on the road to Vegas. We had SoCal Val on during that thing. We had Sakota, who has also since, I forgot he passed away. He was part of that. The entire UPW experience in Vegas was awesome. And, having a much fuller beard than I do now and not getting carded after having just turned 21, which I found hysterical. Vegas was great. Again, I mentioned China earlier, the entire New Year's Eve experience with her and Sean Waltman and the subsequent chaos that ensued, to the point where I was this close, I don't know if you can see how close it is, to being on the Howard Stern show not too long after New Year's 2005 because of everything that had gone down in that little house there in Beverly Hills. So I'll forever remember that. If I'm being honest, there are much more fond memories after we call it our own brand extension in early 2005. Not too long after the China thing, actually, because in April, I started doing my own show. Mike started doing his own show. We came back together for a little while toward the end of 05, or actually, about the summer till the end. But we also took a whole month off in that year because of just everything that was going on with everybody. But I always found, and looking back now, I realized that there was a lot more going on than any of us even knew with everybody. So I think I look back now, and if I went back and watched every episode, I'd probably pick there's probably something good in every single episode. I enjoyed it when Lee and I were doing our thing and Josh came aboard and we started doing the 5 questions with the chump segments during the show. But blatant rip off of Cena, 100% rip off of John Cena. But I enjoyed, much like, I mentioned this to everybody the other day. It's like, people think I have this massive opinion of myself. I never do stuff like this ever because I don't think I'm that interesting a subject personally. But I go back and watch, 5 questions with the chumps is always like just either random questions about the business or about ourselves. And I always found that fun. I will also say the last official episode with the god awful lip syncing of Take It to the Limit by the Eagles at the end. To this day, that's my favorite Eagles song now because of that. So every time I go off to work and I have a playlist up, I have 2 different playlists. I have one that's just my buddy Ariel and her current discography, which, by the way, she has a new album out that's called Throwback. It's stuff that she hadn't released before. So I'll put the link up and I'll send it to you for post or whatever. And then the other playlist is just 10 songs that I call This Is Jeff. Like, these are my songs. And the first one is Take It to the Limit. So, even now, 20 years later, it's still part of me.
What was it? There was a song by, I've got blank now that I think of it. It was System of a Down, Lost in Hollywood. That's a song I listened to because of XMV.
Well,
and I'm not a big System of a Down guy. Which
no, and our show was for sure.
Well,
it's Aaron and Mike definitely. That was one of the chief bands in the car all the time. There was that. There was the last episode we thought we were going to do in the summer of 2005, where we karaoke'd Hotel California there at Universal Studios. That was that could have been a lot more bittersweet than it turned out to be. And luckily for us, Josh came into our lives, and we ended up when Mike had to leave for the reasons he had to leave, and I don't discount any of those reasons ever. Josh being there definitely helped with a infusion of new blood, I guess, for lack of a better term. And I think him and Lee being able to do their thing when I wasn't available, because I was not available a lot toward the end of 2005 and into the last 6 months of the show. So it was good. We had, not just Josh, we had Lee, we had the respective girlfriends, we had different location shoots we got to do. That was the big thing about XMV. We always managed to find somewhere cool to go shoot.
Yeah.
And we don't do that much anymore these days because we've all got our own little fancy, backgrounds or our, multi-dollar computers. We can just do our own shit at home. And during pandemic, we couldn't go anywhere. So it just kind of became the norm. But back in, 02, 03, 04, 05, 06, man, we were just, where can we go today?
Yeah. So. Now, post XMV, you obviously ventured into your own creation space. You had a little podcast because I don't think podcasts were really a thing in like 2006. Yeah. But then it's been almost 20 years since the creation of Talk Wrestling.
Jesus.
And we all know what that was about. I'm not going to go into that particular subject.
Well, no. It's
But when Aaron wanted to bring you back for that, what was it like being back on the channel, doing your own thing, essentially?
Yeah, I never really. It wasn't until 2011 when the whole thing with the strife that, and I look back, I created it between Mike and Aaron and the Casa side of things, with me, monkey in the middle, and I was fully to blame for that. But between XMV and Talk Wrestling, it was just one of those. The rest of the team was kind of and the show ran its course. And again, if you look back at 100 episodes, it ran hard into the ground with its course. We were just trying to find shit to do at that point. If it wasn't the interviews, it was very much like, okay, how far can we go before we're just treading, spinning our wheels? So, the second half of 2006 and into 2007, it was one of those. I did some shows with Lee. We did a couple of retrospectives on XMV. I did a show with my son's mother, who was not yet my son's mother at that point. That is a great story about Talk Wrestling, and that we'll get to that in just a second. But it really felt like I'm the only one that didn't not want to come back. Like I hated not having the show. I was working, not quite full time, but pretty close for a retailer at that point, and I missed it. So unfortunately, we had the terrible situation involving Chris Benoit and his family, and it felt like there couldn't be enough videos or podcasts or whatever on that. And Aaron asked me if I wanted to say my piece. And yes, I really wanted to, because I was seeing so much of the negativity going out from the ex WWE stars who were attacking the company. And not that I've ever worked for the company, and Lord knows by 2007 I probably would have been just as big a critic if I hadn't felt so offended as a fan. So for me, Talk Wrestling was about getting back to doing what I wanted to do, which I find that I'm not as big a fan of being a talking head as I was in 2007. Like I'd rather have somebody, you to bounce off of or whatever. But in 2007, I was ready, willing, and able to just kind of like I'm doing right now. But I also enjoy the interviews. We had our Rob Van Dam on during the XMV years, but my best interviews were just he and I in 2008 and 2014 and the subsequent ones since then. So I felt like, and again, this is probably me sounding way too vain for my own good, but I feel like XMV was a trendsetter. And I feel like if Talk Wrestling was on if Talk Wrestling were to have started, I think if Talk Wrestling were to have started when all the other channels that are out there now started, like, late 2010s pandemic era, I'd probably still be cooking with gas, because, I feel like I stopped and stutter stepped so much that I didn't really allow the show, even though it's been, it didn't really get shut down until 2 WrestleManias ago now. I really feel like there was more to it, and I felt like it could have been more. I'm very much a hyper-focused person, and this better than anybody, having collaborated with me for as long as you have. If something isn't drawing enough of the attention to me or enough of my own stimulus behind it, I'm kind of like whatever about it. Again, that's a blessing and a burden, because when I get behind something, it's like go, 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 go. But then when it's not the foremost part of my brain, I just kind of go, okay, you do it today.
I completely understand that. Now, having been around like as long as you have, I'm sure you've dealt with your fair share of people being cruel and just rude online.
Yes.
I mean, that's a long period of time, multiple social media channels. How did you deal with it then, and how do you deal with it now?
Then I dealt with it like any other teenager would, lash out, go on the air, turn the microphone and the camera on, and just, proliferate it with 4 letters. Just go off on everybody more than once. There's my resignation from NoDQ is still on the Casa channel, and I look back and I go, wow, what a dick. And that was almost 10 years ago. It's like, damn, right. That's a big reason why my last thing on my everyday is don't be a dick. You can be an asshole, because some people just need to have an asshole deal with them, but you don't have to be a dick about it. There is a difference, folks.
There is a difference.
There's a major difference. Nowadays it's, I'll still respond, but I'll be a little more vague about it. There was a very recent thing, as a matter of fact, that I got, had some attention brought my way. And, I loved that it was a journalist, and there was misspellings and complete falsehoods in his statement. I was like, okay, we'll just use that and move on with our life. It was so funny. It was so funny to me to look back and go, wow, okay. I I'd like to think I let it roll off my back more than I do, but I don't. It still bothers me that it's more like I think I find it amusing now that people still feel the need to attack me. It's like, who and what did I ever do or have I ever done to warrant that kind of attention? First of all, if I'm that important, thank you. Because it's the fact that the fact that I've been cracked at by some of the more prominent wrestling journalists of the world when I, couldn't even sniff the air of the collateral or the clout they have is amusing to me. And then there's people like Chris Van Vliet, who I adore and found out is a fan of mine. Denise Salcedo, who I, saw her not interning, but, just basically, shuttling around and working for Sean Waltman. And now she's one of the most powerful content creators in the space. And I am so tickled to be an acquaintance of hers. So because she's that awesome, and she's one of the hardest working people I've ever met, and she's awesome. People like that motivate me more than the yahoos.
Yeah. And hey, I mean, you had Sean put you over on Fightful.
I did, and granted, I completely super chatted for that, and know what? But you know what? It was still cool to. It's nice to know that for all the really sad Neanderthals in the space, there's people like Sean who, have no reason to put me over like he did, super chat or not. And he still did it.
That's the kind of guy Sean is. Now, going back to when XMV was on, I feel like I have to bring this up because there's a little bit of personal behind it. There were storylines integrated into the show. It led to feuds with other people on the show. And I remember trying to recreate that with us in 2009.
Yes.
And we are the only two people on the planet who even remember that happened.
Yeah.
So,
to be fair, we got really into it during the Wrestling Trivia Challenge stuff. That was fun.
With Wrestling Trivia Challenge, it was different because at least we were on the same screen. But
and it was more real.
it was more real. And we'll get into the Trivia Challenge in a little bit.
Yes.
As far as the storylines with XMV, and even after, because I think there was one or two on Talk Wrestling, if I remember correctly. Did you think that doing those was too much for the show, or were you into doing them because it gave you something to do other than just answer questions?
I think it was too much on Talk Wrestling. I think having Noah Donish buy XMV or buy NoDQ and have him be my boss, and it went nowhere. It went absolutely nowhere. We didn't do anything with it. It never actually culminated in any damn thing. I was like, okay, except for the fact that we popped Damien Demento, which I thought was funnier than hell. That we right. Yeah, exactly. Who the fuck? Exactly. I know Damien Demento is.
Oh yeah.
He's a trivia note in history. That's really all he is, folks. Just saying.
93 Rumble for no apparent reason.
Yeah, and he was the loser of the first ever Raw main event. So there you go. Good. Congratulations, Damien. You're a footnote in the Undertaker's career. So work on that and criticize your pot smoking friends more. Love you, Rob. Anyway, XMV again. People forget when XMV started, all of us were still technically teenagers. We were 18, 19 years old. So when you're 18 and 19, you do dumb shit. Hell, I was 18 when I had the car accident that had induced my first traumatic brain injury, and I was being young and stupid. So 18 and 19-year-olds are still teenagers, and they're still dumb. That's why I think adulthood should be 21. That's my own opinion, but I'm not going to get into age alignment and politics in this country, because that's a rabbit hole we don't go down, because it is a work after all, folks. Buy the shirt.
There's a bunch of them.
It's a bunch of variations, and they're all awesome. I highly recommend buying the King of the Ring variant and wearing it to Washington, just for no reason, just because. Anyway,
that's the only king allowed in Washington.
That's the one point where you can be a dick. I will authorize that. Full blown. March in Washington. Just be peaceful and chill about it. That's all we ask. But XMV, I think the storylines were better. They were, I don't know about better, because there was some dumbass shit going on. But I felt like they were better integrated into the flow of the show. You notice the last one we did where Mike and Josh were supposed to have this fight, and it started out with a flick of the nose, and it was supposed to deviate into this brawl. And then the skies opened up and it started pouring down rain on the park here in Canyon Country. And we're all just like, what are we doing? What are we doing? Yeah. Which is why it transitioned to back at Josh's place, all in our PJs, just answering questions. It's like, this is what we're supposed to be doing. But the original one that split us up, the brand extension story, I thought was so fun. I thoroughly enjoyed the low budget way that we had me with the towel over my head, Taz style, facing away from the camera with my back to the camera, and me, giving the intro for XMV after I had my ass beat, which, that part of the storyline wasn't all that fun, head trauma wise, but right. Giving the intro in Mike's voice, and Mike sitting like right here behind the camera, which I thought was funny. And going through Magic Mountain, which, looking back now, that wouldn't happen in 2026 because Jet doesn't do Magic Mountain anymore. But I really feel like the storylines may have been better if it wasn't me always ending up at the butt of the joke or the bottom of the fountain. Or something that had to do with me having some sort of, bodily harm attempted or executed. The kick in the face wasn't all that fun. The rinsing off with the freaking little ocean shower, that was funny. Going into a Roo show with what it ended up making a face on my shirt with the cake batter, so that was funny. I heard about that one for weeks. It's like, God damn, it wasn't that funny, guys, but sometimes it is that funny. So there is that.
It's always 420 something.
Shit. I enjoyed it at the time, and I'm sure when I go back and watch them, which will be hopefully soon, there'll be bits and pieces where I like and don't like stuff. I remember now looking back at the documentary 101 Reasons Not to Be a Pro Wrestler that Mike, I want to say his name was Mooneyham, but I don't think that's right. So I'm sorry, Mike, if that's not correct, was shooting, and they got footage of us outside of the notorious PWG sweatbox, and my co-host Mike had sat down in one of the chairs, and as he went to sit down, we got front flashed by one of the wrestlers in the ring, and he fell through the chair. He was so shocked. It was one of those stupid, little plastic folding chairs that couldn't hold a freaking cruiserweight, let alone me or Mike. And it broke off right in his hand. And so the footage of us being interviewed is Mike with that chair. Stuff like that happening outside of the storyline of PWG show or our show was, I think, more fun than the stuff we fabricated.
There you go. Now, has there ever been a moment across all of the content that you've done, not just like Extreme Mayhem, XMV, like everything that you've done, that you can point out and be like, that's my favorite thing I've ever done?
The answer to that, it's always the RVD interviews, especially the ones on Talk Wrestling. But in more recent years, when I've been, as I'm called, the founder of the Feast, the man behind the multiverse back, a couple years ago now, there was a moment. I get misty thinking about it now because I was still like, yeah. When the alternate commentary team, so at that point I think it was Noah, James, and I think it was JJ on there too. And I forget, and I'm sorry, Jay, if I did forget. The realization that Steve Austin was actually going to have a match, ring the bell with Kevin Owens at WrestleMania. And they were all on commentary. The realization on their faces and the reactions, I think, is the proudest moment that's not really mine, if that makes any sense. I wasn't doing the call. I wasn't, involved in the direct execution of it, but I was producing and I was in the director's chair, however you want to phrase it. So if it's not an interview, it's that moment because, and Josh points that all the time, made me cry. Just prideful tears of joy. But interview wise, I personally feel the interview I did with Rob RVD by myself, that went up in January of 2008 that was an hour long. It spanned 3 episodes of Talk Wrestling. I'm proud of that one because not only did I get to just sit down and dive deep with Rob after he being friends for 3 years at that point, which is crazy. We've been friends 20 years now. 21 pretty soon. But the fact that he was able to get the message out about how unnecessarily, unfairly marijuana was labeled as a class 1 narcotic, which it's not at all, should be labeled like that. And this is a point that Jeff Meacham was in his life that, didn't smoke, didn't drink a lot. I guess the 2004 trip will negate that process if you watch that show. But I was so much against weed and smoking and whatever. And to the point that Dylan's mother and I, my son's mother and I, would really get into it about it. And having the education, not only out to my audience, but right to me, right to my face, next to me, talking to me, was eye-opening. So I think solo interview wise, it's the interview with Rob in 2008. But if it's not me, it's the segment at the end of night 1 of WrestleMania in 2022.
Yeah, they're good.
But also, no, it's just my team's realization, like, oh my God, we're calling the Steve Austin match. Oh my God.
Yeah. So
cool. And so very much like Edge's return, like, what's happening? And the fact that I got to the power of my name. I hate that shit. It's so stupid. But allowed them to have that moment as fans was cool.
Yeah.
Oh God, made me cry already, you jerk. Anyway,
we still got questions to go, so have fun.
I know.
So, I hope this question doesn't come across as arrogant from me,
Okay.
but I think the two of us are basically responsible for the success of Wrestling Trivia Challenge.
100%.
And again, it's not like a toot our own horn type of thing, but
no,
other than the week of David as champion and the week of Cass as champion, it was just us. Like we were the champions the entire rest of the show.
100%.
So how important for you was it to be a wrestling trivia guy and a successful wrestling trivia guy at that, being in this space?
In the moment, it was a source of pride. It was a wonderful thing. And I think looking back now, I value it even more because it got your name out there into the masses. And I, again, not trying to toot anybody's horn, yours or mine, but I have so much more appreciation for you than I really think anybody I've worked with, because you, at the end of the day, are who you are. You've always been who you've been. You've not tried to put anything out there about you that wasn't you, especially with me. And whether it's on the air or in our private discussions as friends, you are Greg Cherry, end of sentence. And there's no, like, what is he really like? What's the there's no fucking ulterior with you, dude. Like, you are the most genuine dude I think I've had the joy to work with prior to assembling the team. There are some people on the team now. Noah Foster. If there is a more pure, innocent, and pure of heart dude than Noah Foster, please introduce me to them. I need those kind of people in my life. Like, honest to God. And he's a fan. He loves this shit. It's refreshing. People like Big G, who, I think the role of him and his wife, and it's always a joy to know that I'm going to pop in here on Wednesday nights and he's going to be sitting there in the green room waiting for me. That's great. But I think it was important because not only did you show that there is, even within the space, there is an audience for wrestling trivia, but also, and you and I talked about this, and if I'm drawing too far into, out of your shell, then let me know. I feel like you were able to come into your own as a content creator and an on-air personality being that champion.
I mean,
I think you had the show. You had done Luck of the Draw in your own space and time, and I love Luck of the Draw. We need to find a way, whether it's the big guests or not. Since WrestleMania is in Vegas, we got to do Luck of the Draw that week. We have to. Just somewhat.
Listen, if we can find the people to do it, that's the thing. If we can find the people willing to do it, yes. I am down whenever.
Yeah.
I will. I feel like in my soul, especially in the last year, I need it.
No, yeah. I
have to re-edit the intro for reasons, but
yes. But I feel like that period of time, especially when it was just you and I, and we were just, toe to toe, and I would sit there and chirping in when I was hosting and throwing everybody at you that I possibly could. And finally it was like, all right, we're just going to turn you guys loose for an hour. That lead up to that hour-long trivia match, which was on my son's birthday, which was he's turning 10, a big milestone birthday. I'm just so focused on this. It's so stupid now looking back. It's so funny. I really feel like that was the most energized I'd felt since I thought Talk Wrestling was done. Because you remember the previous year after Undertaker, did the whole gimmick with the hat and everything in the ring, I thought I was done.
Yeah.
Took a big giant pain in the ass, draw me back out of retirement again, which it's wrestling, so it's never a real retirement. But that year between that moment and the Iron Man trivia thing with you was the most energized I'd felt in years. And I'm so happy that you have been able to cultivate your audience. You've been able to make contacts with people. Like the fact that I was there when Maven Huffman defeated The Undertaker at the Staples Center for the Hardcore Championship. He was the Tough Enough champion. He was a buzz guy. Fell off, admittedly, he'll admit that. But now he's back doing his own thing. And the fact that you've cultivated a friendship with that guy is, I just look back and go, man, the Greg Cherry that was a fan of XMV in 2006, 2007 wouldn't have even typed out Maven's MySpace and reached out because of nope, I'm in my shell. I'm good. I'm here where I am. And you are not that guy anymore. And I'm so fucking happy for you that you're not.
I mean, to some extent, I still can be, but that's very certain situations.
When you pop on here, though, it's, like I said, you are genuine. You are who you are, but everything in wrestling is it's better when it's yourself dialed up, and you definitely have that now where you dial it up when you're here. And I don't know if I take pride in it because it's not mine to be prideful at, but I enjoy that it's happened for you. And I think being the Wrestling Trivia Challenge master has definitely been a big catalyst for that.
Now, I feel like I have to ask this because we've been doing the Greg Cherry brand in particular for the last 5+ years. The date on the channel will say way earlier because I was uploading stuff to the channel, but it wasn't the Greg Cherry brand at the time.
Right.
That's been 2020. What is your favorite thing or memory about doing GCB programming? And it can be, Greg Cherry show. It can be Jodes. It can be Luck of the Draw. It can be any of those, really.
Can it be Wrestling Trivia Challenge?
It can be Wrestling Trivia Challenge.
Okay,
I think I know what you're going to say. Not that you brought that up.
Because as much as this last year has been what it's been, I think one of the biggest sources of joy I'll ever have is the conspiracy to get you that belt and the people that made it happen. I that was so cool. There was that, and just being able to, not only interact with Chris Daniels again after so much time, but being able to get him to record that cameo for you, bringing Sarah in live out of nowhere, which which was awesome. I got the cameo and I still brought her, and I thought that was fun. Having the belt presented to you after you reach that milestone, that for me, again, that's very like selfish sounding to me. The fact that that's my favorite Greg Cherry brand moment is the fact that I put it together. So, but it was, other than that, God, I'm just trying to think. You know what it was? It was Joe with Maven.
Yeah.
Because I was, I mean, here I am sitting literally I'm in the Hollywood and Highland, which, the El Capitan's there and the Chinese theater's right there. And I'm sitting on the screen with one of my best friends, and Maven Huffman is competing on your show.
Mhm.
That was cool. And that's something that you did. I had nothing to do with that except being a very large ginger fly on the wall on screen. But yeah, that and the WTC belt presentation, I think, are my two favorites with the Greg Cherry brand.
Yeah, those are both definitely good ones. So I'm going to list off a few people that you've either interacted with or that have been part of your journey, and you just give me a word, a phrase, a statement that comes to mind when you think about this person.
Okay. I will try to keep it word association because I know nobody actually sticks to that when they use this gimmick, but there'll be a couple people where
I mean, I've done it a couple different times, and it's fine however you want to interpret it, because it's tough to condense what you think about certain people that have been part of your life into just
very much so
a few words. First off, Aaron Rift.
Not here without him, for one thing. I'm not in the wrestling content creation space if I don't attend WrestleMania 2000 and send the arena report into the mayhem.com. I'm not sitting here, Jeff Meacham, creator of the multiverse, if it's not for Aaron, honest to God, it's he and him on that side, Hogan on the fandom side. I'm not sitting here without either one of those two folks.
Stagger Lee.
Oh God. Nowadays, for me, undervalued, and I need to change that immediately.
I'm going to throw Virtue at you.
Virtue is my continual weekly source of a reminder that Eric Bischoff's book is true. Controversy creates cash.
Very fair.
Virtue is, if ever there was a bigger shit stir that I didn't mind having the stirring stick, it's Virtue. I had no problem with that whatsoever. I think it's fun at this point.
Speaking of controversial, Maxwell Jacob Friedman, the AEW World Champion.
Scumbag, right? I love Max, and I loved him completely kayfabing CBV on the show that they did recently. Everybody needs to go watch CBV and Max. That shit was great. Look, he had no business giving me the rub he did, saying he was a fan of mine, putting me over on the little promo he shot when I got together with him, throwing Josh under the goddamn double-decker bus later that night. Same segments. Grateful to have him as an acquaintance. Happy for him that he's able to hit the reset button, because his body was beat to dog shit at the end of 2023. And I'm glad he's back at the top of the mountain. The fact that we ended 2025 with two of my favorite people in the world as world champions in their respective companies was awesome.
Well, we might as well throw it out. Frankie Kazarian.
Coolest wrestler alive. Still, after 21 years of awarding the damn trophy, the plaque. One of my favorite people ever. Wish we had more opportunities to hang out. He's an Angels fan, which is a hard thing to be in 2026. It was a hard thing to be when we met, because they'd only recently been world champion. No, I take that back. When Frankie and I first met, they had not yet won the World Series. So Frankie and I have been friends literally the up and down of the Angels gamut since 2002 and their one World Series win. And we are long-suffering fans. I love that man and his wife and his boy. Great family. I got to see his mom at Rebellion. Like, I hadn't seen Frankie's mom in 15 years. And there she was at ringside. I was like, holy shit. It's great. I love them. All of them.
The two WTC champions that aren't us, David Diaz and Chris Cass.
David Diaz is a underappreciated wrestling fan and journalist in the space he occupies. Not just wrestling, but period. He's underappreciated in his friendship circle for sure. Chris Cass, not interacted enough with him. Would love to. Knows his shit. That's for damn sure. You beat me, you know your shit, kids. Flat out. And I will gladly, not gladly admit it, but I will truthfully admit that my powers of retention aren't what they are, and that's my own doing from my own clumsiness. But in that era, 3 people beat me, and I have admiration for all of them.
Our co-host usually on Wednesday nights, Matty Laws.
Sexy man. The only woman can get away with having a shirt off during most of the show. So that's, I mean, quite frankly, as it should be. At least for now. You and I are both working on it. It's DDPY for me, and whatever you got going on, whatever it is.
Yeah, I need to get back into the gym.
Yeah,
I get my body ready as a single man.
That's right. That's right. If I can only do what I can do on my end, brother. I'm just throwing that out there. If you know, you know. If you don't, too bad. Maddie was a wonderful inclusion of a new dynamic for the show that I had no expectations for, and was glad to see it evolve.
I feel like I have to say me, but I mean you kind of already covered me earlier, so I don't know what I.
No,
I'm not going to fish.
You know what? I'll be a dick and do the one word for you.
Okay.
Resilient.
Your
favorite wrestler of all time was called the most resilient athlete in WWF history more than once by McMannequin. I think you are resilient.
Now, is there anybody else, creator-wise or otherwise, that you want to show love to that I haven't mentioned? And that may be an endless list, but feel free.
Right. God. I really just want, for anybody that's listening that is a fan of mine or has been a hater of mine over the years, and there's equal amounts of both, and I love you all for it. I just hope that as we get toward the end of this second month of the year already, what the fuck, where's the year going already? Just remember that not everybody is going to think like everybody else, or it'd be a very boring world that we live in. And not everybody's going to think like everybody else in the wrestling world, in this little microcosm. And also keep in mind, we're all we've got. Wrestling is still not the most appreciated thing in the world. It's better, but it's still the most underappreciated form of entertainment I think there is. And I think that's still bullshit. And the fact that we wrestling fans, I forget who I first heard say it, but somebody prominent said the worst thing about wrestling fans is the wrestling fans. And it's like, they're not wrong. But if less of us were that bunch of big dickheads, we'd be better off.
Yeah.
So I love the content creators like Chris Van Vliet, like Denise Salcedo, like, I don't care who likes it, Sean Ross Sapp and the Fightful team, like Kate, us, Aaron, just it's the Simple Reliable team. The internet is called the World Wide Web. There is enough room. Pete's Dragon, one of my favorite Disney movies of all time. There's room for everyone in this world. So everyone makes some room. That's the line of the song. There's room for everybody in this space. If you guys would hyper focus on not being a bunch of dickheads, it would be so much better for the wrestling space. So follow the example of Chris Van Vliet. And people ask me a lot, because when I said that Chris was a fan of mine, I wasn't trying to, whatever. He told me at the Sam Roberts podcast that he'd been a fan of mine for years. It's like, if more people followed the example of Chris Van Vliet and the way he approaches his his content and his interviews and everything, there would be so much less toxicity. I think the poison control business would go under from the lack of toxicity in wrestling if more people were like Greg Cherry, Chris Van Vliet, Denise Salcedo, and people like them.
Van Vliet is somebody I want to get on this show. I mean, there's a list, granted, but like Chris is definitely one of those. And
I would love to have Chris tell his story rather than have somebody else tell their story to him. I think if we dove deep enough, Chris's story would be fascinating. I got to meet his wife when I attended the Insight Live with Ethan Page. She's her approach to us crazies is indicative of how positive a person Chris is and how positive they are. The fact that they, as a team, have adopted the philosophy of 3 things in the morning, 3 things before they go to bed that they're grateful for every single day. And it can be the same thing every day, or, a slight variant. That is something I aspire to. I try so hard. That's why I put that statement out every day. And I'll say it here. Find a reason to smile. Help when you can. Be grateful. And don't be a dick. I have found, and when I deviate off that path, it gets deviated. I go off the road for sure. But when I stick to those 4 lines, the rest of the day just kind of makes itself happen. Honest to God.
There you go. Jeff, it's always a pleasure to share the screen with you. Now, if people want to find anything that you're doing, where can they find you?
I'll send you the graphic and post. Well, you can go to @ Jeff Meacham on Twix. And I firmly believe we should make it a group effort to start calling it Twix, just to piss off the Muskie Man. Twix, Instagram, and Threads @ Jeff Meacham. If you want to interact with me directly, you can DM me on any of those platforms or @ Jeff Meacham on Facebook. I might answer you. The YouTube channel kind of is what it is at this point. I'm so happy to be doing the shows with you and appear on NoDQ when I'm welcome. That, between those and the Masca Mafia and their slave drivers, it's hard to do my own shit. But for, posts and quips and, little things, those 3 platforms, Twix, Instagram, and Threads, I'm always there.
Jeff, thank you for being on the show. Everybody go check out Jeff's social media, and you can watch him on the Greg Cherry Show as well. So thank you for watching this episode of Greg Talks to People. You can find me on all social media @ Greg Cherry Brand. And until next time, be kind to each other.